Hi cuties, today we're delving into one of the most impactful gaming subgenres in the world at one point, extreme sports, more specifically skateboarding. Little background for y'all, I've been skating on and off since I was 3 years old, okay? There's a baby picture of me with a PS1 controller playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, and I believe it made me the sexy bastard that I am today. At one point in time, we were getting insane releases like Tony Hawk, Thrasher Skate and Destroy, the Skate Games, Shaun Skateboarding Mid, and more. Bro, these games shaped several other childhoods and influenced pop culture in a huge way, and skate culture still is cool as fuck, and I want to talk about it. I guess we'll start with a genesis of it all, a game released in the late 80s titled 720 Degrees, because at that time that was the record for a skateboard spin. Kinda nuts. Surely that won't be beaten by a certain Birdman fella. Anyways, this game was actually on arcade cabinets, and from what I could tell, because I haven't played it, I'm fucking 22 years old, it was incredibly well received, and even made it to the Game Boy Color and several other remaster packages. Now, still in the 80s, we got Skate or Die for the Commodore 64, which was actually kind of fucking sick. You get to skate over cop cars, shred in a half pipe, and it was released on the NES as, believe it or not, EA's first game. It's kind of cool how they went from this to the Skate franchise. However, we'll get there later. Shut up, bitch, now. They actually made a sequel in 1990, aptly titled Skate or Die 2. This one is more of a side-scroller and has a ridiculously goofy story, and that's about it. For a few years after this, skateboarding was actually at its lowest point. Everybody was kind of over the surfboard with wheels era because they were lame as shit. I don't know. In the mid-90s, though, there was a big bang explosion of extreme sports titles, with a lot of them having skateboarding as a side option, mainly in racers. Take the Extreme series, for example. The first was actually an ESPN X Games branded one, hence the X. In the games, the goal is to go fast and beat the shit out of everybody else. This is so crazy. These games are like a fever dream for me. I remember raging at this shit for days, just getting right hooked by inline skaters and such. As cool as it is seeing skateboarding games being represented like this, we didn't get the cool shit until this game called Street Skater, with an 8, for the PS1. It's crazy because if you squint, that cover art looks like he's using roller skates or some shit, and I almost think that that was purposeful because them roller skating days were a big trend and they were more popular than skateboarding at the time. As for the game, it's a simple do cool trick, get big point before the time limit ran out. It had a pretty sick punk soundtrack and doesn't play too bad, all things considered. The next year was 1999. And you know what happened on June 27th, 1999? That's right! That Birdman motherfudger himself landed the first ever 900. Tony was already a figure in the sports world, but that trick transcended all pop culture and he became a household name. A few months before that, actually, he was announced as being in Activision's brand new skateboarding game, now titled Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. We didn't get the game until September 29th, 1999, but this is now my real forte right here. I'm too young to have played the other shit I was talking about, but this is my bread and butter, okay? Ditching the linearity of all the other skate games at the time, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 allowed players to simply just skate around in an environment and knock out challenges in 2 minutes. This wasn't a racer, a vert half-pipe competition. It was fun, non-stop skating with stat progression, fantastic levels, and one of the best soundtracks of all time. It also didn't just include Tony Hawk. Tony handpicked skaters he felt like would be a great fit, and boom, there we have an iconic cast of rememberable names on top of an amazing gameplay formula. I don't even gotta tell y'all what happened next. You already know they dropped a sequel that was bigger and badder than the last. 10 days from being exactly a year later, we got quite literally one of the greatest sequels of all time. I mean, this shit rivals Terminator 2, bitch. This game is still the highest rated sports game of all time, which is a little nuts, I'll be honest, but it's still deserving. In this title, they added manuals which allow for all your flip, grab, and grind trick combos to never stop, never soft. Sorry. Anyways, some of the best skate game maps are on this shit, like School 2, Philly, Venice, and if you're somehow not feeling those, they even added a level creator. Once again, the soundtrack was smack-a-lackin', and it's still regarded today as some of the best soundtracks in gaming, putting a lot of people onto some of their favorite artists and bands to this day. Before we progress, I want to give a shout out to one of the most underrated skateboarding games of all time, Thrasher Skate and Destroy. This came out the same year as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 in November, published by Rockstar, by the way, what the fuck. However, due to its steep learning curve and physics-based skating mechanics, a lot of motherfuckers was like, I'm not playing this hard-ass shit, Tony Hawk better. But this was actually one of the first simulation skating games, and it is so satisfying once you pull off a sick-ass line. As opposed to Tony Hawk's mainly punk and surf rock soundtracks, we got mainly hip-hop and rap in this game, and it fits with the game's grittier, grounded approach to gameplay. You have a couple minutes on each stage to just do the sickest shit possible until it actually switches to a creepy first-person angle of a police officer running at your stupid ass with a taser. This horrified me as a kid, but taught me early on how to get away with crimes. Yay! Anyways, this game is sick as fuck and it should be remade Rockstar. But let's get back to Tony Hawk. So Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 came out in 2001 for the PS1, PS2, Game Boy Color, and GameCube. And at this point, the extreme sports industry seemed to pivot in favor of the Tony Hawk approach. We had Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX, Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, Shaun Palmer's Pro Snowboarder. I mean, what the fuck? The influx of games in this genre was growing more and more, and let's say by 2005, we had several spin-off skating games like The Simpsons Skateboarding, which is absolutely abhorrent. We also had Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure, which is actually in the Pro Skater 4 engine, and is essentially a dumbed-down version of the Pro Skater series featuring, what do you know, Disney characters, in various landmarks of their respected franchises. In another one of the best sequels of all time, Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance Repackage, there was a side game mode where you got to shred as Snake and Raiden. I mean, bro, what the fuck is this? Apparently, this was supposed to be used to promote Konami's new game, Evolution Skateboarding, which was a tasteless, nasty ripoff of the Tony Hawk games. What I'm really trying to convey here was, at one point, it seemed like every single franchise wanted a taste of those bearings, trucks, and wheels, to the point where they were getting to be a little cash grabby with it, and it was apparent. From 2002 to 2005, though, we got the most incredible game run I've ever seen, starting with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, all the way to American Wasteland. I'm not going to go balls deep and review every single one of these, but they all have such great, unique factors about them, so I will start with THPS 4. This was the first one to ditch the timer, giving players at least 16 challenges per map, that's not including the pro challenges after you beat the game, by the way, and added spine transfers, which means you could go over huge ramps and half pipes, as well as the revert from the last game, and manual, leading to the gajillion point combos. I am biased, I admit, but I believe that this has the single best soundtrack out of all of the games, and I also think every single level is so amazingly balanced to be comboed upon. Then, the year after that, they decided, fuck it, let's drop the single best story skateboarding game ever made to this point. Tony Hawk's Underground was a grittier game in the franchise where you start as a pipsqueak dirty nerd in New Jersey, making your way to Skateboarding Hall of Fame. Fuck Eric Sparrow, by the way, if you know, you know. Thug 1 also gave us such a brilliant character creator and even board customization. This is easily one of my favorite skateboarding games ever, between this and Pro Skater 4, so please go play it or I will shoot my foot. Now, we're in 2004, the single two greatest movies ever released, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and Spider-Man 2, as well as Thug 2 on the PlayStation 2, bitch. In the skate world at the time, Bam Margera was the biggest name due to his incredible reality television program titled Viva La Bam, and Jackass, of course, was taking off like crazy. Thug 2 took advantage of the popularity and basically made the whole game about Bam. He's sort of the antagonist, and your mission is to do way crazier stunts on Tony Hawk's team to beat his cheating ass along the way. You go on a world destruction tour across Australia, Barcelona, and more, giving this game some of the most unique locations in the entire franchise to this point. A lot of people tout this as the best one or their overall favorite, and while I absolutely love it, this was a point where perhaps the series started to wane on folks a bit. For several years now, they were dropping game after game, as well as other franchises trying to sniff a little line off the skateboard coke. Little bonus ripper fact, they also put this on the PlayStation Portable as Thug 2 Remix, and I feel it is the definitive way to play it, seeing as how they actually added extra shit, and the PSP is the best handheld ever. Anyways, now it's 2005. Zoe 101 premiered. YouTube just came out. Guitar Hero 1 made 4-year-old me shit my pant. As well as the very last fantastic Tony Hawk video game, American Wasteland. That might be a hot take for some, but I'm serious. This is the pinnacle of the classic Tony Hawk engine. American Wasteland is a very punky, Californian-based Tony Hawk game where, once again, you play a little street rat, no good skater bitch, and the goal is to make it big. This is also the first one with a quote-unquote open world, and the first one released on the next-generation console, Xbox 360. I say open world hesitantly because the game has these little tunnels that you skate through that are secretly just loading screens, allowing you to continue skating but very slowly and with frame hitches and shit, where it's very obviously just loading the next area. I personally think it's still pretty cool and you can still keep a combo going, so I mean, who cares? They also added the ability to wall run and do backflips for some reason, probably to chase that swag parkour trend, and even added a BMX bike. Wow, taboo, right? American Wasteland is fucking awesome. It has a silly fun story and you get a goth GF at the end, which is an added bonus. Overall, the game received decent reviews, but a lot of motherfuckers were mad about the fake open world shit and began to contemplate the lack of reinvention in the franchise, citing that they missed when the game was just about skateboarding. Bro, although I could understand a take like this, American Wasteland launched with a classic mode, which literally added the basic Tony Hawk gameplay of 2-minute timers and goals on a map. By this point though, it's 2006, and a lot of the fans' criticism led to them completely reinventing the series. Project 8, get it, it's the 8th game, changed the entire swag of the series, opting for a more realistic look and utilized mocapping for the 7th generation of consoles. This was always kind of jarring for me as a kid. They showed this trailer with the insane board physics all in slow-mo and shit, and I was baffled to find out it was a Tony Hawk game. When I said the last fantastic Tony Hawk game was American Wasteland, it doesn't mean that I hate Project 8. I actually still had a PS2 at the time, so I played the port which actually had linear levels and still used the old engine. It took me buying the game again once I got a 360 to realize they completely changed everything. The animations are a lot more realistic looking, yet you're still doing crazy megafuck McTwists and such, with the story revolving around Tony Hawk ranking skaters to come into his sex dungeon. I mean skate team. And yeah, the locations are okay. It's just like a regular ass American neighborhood next to a town. It's got a nice park, I guess. It's nothing special. The writing was on the wall for the franchise, with skateboarding subculture seemingly fizzling out and the hype and demand for each new title waned and lowered every year. Then we got EA Skate, bitch. Nobody thought anybody could make a skating game as fun as Tony Hawk and be slightly realistic at the same time, but the some of my bitches did it, okay? Skate Period dropped in 2007, using left and right stick controls to flick the board in a fictional city of San Vanalona. Even though you can't get off your board, you didn't even need to with how huge the map was and how brilliantly it was designed for hours of skateboarding fun. They added session markers so you can reload a spot you want to skate every time you fail, the super innovative replay editor which allowed for realistic filming for all your kicky flippies, and the opening cinematic for this game sets the tone wondrously and keeps the plot simple and fun. And just like that, skateboarding games were back. All it took was a super creative title from EA, and bow, life was breathed into a once dwindling subgenre. Tony Hawk's Proving Ground, released in the same year, which was such a gray, dull, realistic approach to the Tony Hawk formula with many unneeded additions such as rigging, nail the manual, and the stupid-ass heavy force push kick shit, whatever. For the first time ever, Tony Hawk was overtaken by a completely different game, and it was both horrendously sad, yet fresh at the same time. That was Neversoft's final game, and there certainly wasn't anything else released that completely tarnished and tainted the beautiful legacy of a once thriving franchise. Back to Skate. They subsequently released, in my opinion, the actual best skateboarding game of all time, Skate 2. You can now get off your board, the map evolved into a better Skatopia, if you will, and it became more realistic but more fun with the additions of skate blockers that you have to pop off and security guards you have to call Big Black from Robin Big to get off. I honestly don't want to talk too much about this one because I really could go forever, but it's the most grounded, badass skate game ever made, and you need to play it right fucking now, okay, bitch? Now we're rolling, bitches. Skate 3 came out in 2010 and it set the fucking world on fire, blowing up all over the tube because of the silliness and more lighter tones featured in the game, such as the absolutely ridiculous ragdoll physics in the Hall of Meat mode and the more ludicrous spots in the game to skate on. Then they just didn't drop a game in the fucking franchise again. I really don't know why, bro. It sold so well and everything. It just makes no sense to me still to this day. I have a theory for why they didn't immediately make a Skate 4. I think it was obviously the disbandment of the original development team, but also it had to be around the time that FIFA and Madden pack sales started busting through the damn roof. They make billions on these games alone, so maybe they just didn't want to put money into a seemingly dying market. And this is when skateboarding games started to die for real, even more so proven by the terrible attempt at rekindling any sort of magic the franchise used to have with Tony Hawk Ride and Shred. They basically clay molded a Wii balance board into the shape of a skate deck and had the worst control scheme ever to simulate riding a board. There were little cameras on the left, right, top, and bottom, and it used weight balancing and slight movements to perform the tricks, but it was so gimmicky, and I ended up just trying to do real tricks on it and broke my fucking foot. I'm kidding. But the only other honorable mention from this period was Shaun White's Skateboarding, but I can never get into it despite having a decent premise of, using skating to restore color back to a government mandate which banned fun stuff. Anyways, that leads us to now. In the recent years, we got games like Session, Skater XL, Ollie Ollie World, and the absolutely amazing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 remake, which Activision has actually had the servers down on Xbox for months with no fix in sight, and also shelved the 3+4 remake in favor of Warzone updates. Awesome! But it's clear this style of game is pretty niche, all things considered. Skate 4 is allegedly dropping this year, but it's just called Skate Period, and it's going to be a free-to-play EA live service title, and Session Skate Sim is probably the best recent skating game to play in the modern era, with a tough learning curve, but feature complete with several maps, plenty of customization options, including gravity alterations to make your skater either play like Tony Hawk or so realistic it hurts you in real life. I feel like I've been yapping too long, so let me just end by saying skateboarding games were super important to so many childhoods, and to the industry in general. They're not just another sports title cash grab like many are today. They actually had infinite replay value, coupled with soundtracks that were damn near life-changing. I'm not being hyperbolic, bitch. I still think that there's a huge market for skating games, as it seems like the sport is still thriving with many young fire-ass skaters, and if Skate 4 is done right, it could easily start another skating game revolution. I don't know. Shout out to Hellskate, by the way, which has a demo out now and an early access period starting soon. It's basically a Tony Hawk style roguelike where you skate through hell and you fight at the same time, and it's very stylish, unique, it's got old thug developers, and I love it. But that's really about it, my yummies. If you haven't played any skateboarding game, I can't recommend any of these games enough, except for some of the mid ones I mentioned. Even if you're not a big fan of the sport itself, there's still so many different games with plenty to offer, and they prioritize fun over any other gameplay element, so please check them out. Yeah, like I said, sorry if I yap too much. Do a kickflip on the like button, hit a dark slide on the subscribe, and I love you guys. Bye!